Matthew Scott, also known as Matt, is a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force, who was assigned to the Icarus Base. Scott is the second in command to Colonel Everett Young. Matthew Scott's parents died in a car crash when he was 4 years old, and he was raised by a priest. At some point in his early life, Scott had confessed to his adopted father that he had unintentionally impregnated a 16-year-old girl that he barely knew. He would go on to believe that she had aborted the baby, with his faith called into question. Up until this point of weakness, he had thought joining the priesthood was his calling. The priest, his adopted father, died of liver failure due to alcoholism when Scott was 16. Though he remains religious, Scott did not become a priest like he had envisioned, and by 2009 was a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force, stationed at Icarus Base. During this time, he was hiding a relationship with Lieutenant Vanessa James, though Master Sergeant Ronald Greer seemed to be aware. 2009. When Icarus Base came under the attack of 3 Hatak vessels under the command of the Lucian Alliance, he led the evacuation through the Stargate to the 9th symbol address, the ancient ship, Destiny. He was then put in charge of the new expedition when his commanding officer, Colonel Everett Young, was critically injured during the evacuation. When it was discovered that Destiny's life support was failing, Scott led an expedition through the Stargate to the desert planet chosen by Destiny's computers. In order to search the planet for lime more efficiently, Scott split the expedition into 2 teams. He ordered Eli to lead Dr. Jeremy Franklin, Sergeant Curtis, and Andrea Palmer in one direction, while he, Nicholas Rush, and Master Sergeant Ronald Greer went in another. A while later, he began seeing a sort of life form, though he did not mention it to the others, possibly believing it to be a mirage. When Rush could go no further, Scott then ordered Greer to take Rush back to the Stargate and continued the search alone. Alone in the desert, Scott saw the dust bug again, which started leading him to the lime. After giving it water, he began to hallucinate and had a vision of his past. He lost consciousness on the bank of a dry lake bed, but was awakened when the life form sprung water from beneath the sand. He tested the lake bed for lime, and finding some, shoveled it into his pack, making his way back to the gate. Somewhere on the path back, he lost consciousness again. Fortunately, he was found by Greer, and they returned to Destiny together. After refilling the CO2 scrubbers, it was discovered that Destiny was losing power. During this time, Scott familiarized himself with the control settings of the only available ancient shuttle. Though this only flight experiment had been in an F-302 fighter interceptor simulator, he expressed interest in taking the shuttle for a joyride. He made rubbings of ancient lettering on the controls and had them translated by Dr. Adam Brody. He then posted the English translated notes with each button and switch, though as Dr. Nicholas Rush pointed out, he got some backwards. When it was discovered that Destiny would collide with the star and be destroyed, Colonel Everett Young organized a lottery to determine which 17 people would board the shuttle and escape to a nearby habitable planet. As the only pilot, he was selected by Young, along with Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson. Ultimately, the ship was not destroyed, as it needed to pass through a star to refuel its reactors, and the shuttle was recovered. Later, Scott took part on the Hoth planet mission to recover frozen water for the mysteriously vanishing supplies on Destiny. When it was discovered that the culprit for the missing water was Scott's old friends, the dust bugs encountered on the desert planet, Scott defended the aliens when the team considered them dangerous after learning about Corporal Gorman's attack by experiencing how the aliens helped him find the lime that Destiny needed. On Hoth, Scott's life was in danger when he fell into a crevasse during a tremor, damaging his suit and exposing him to the planet's lethal atmosphere. Colonel Everett Young was forced to carry him back to the Stargate, where he had another encounter with the aliens that had been thrown through the gate in a drum of water. While Dr. Nicholas Rush had warned the pair of them to remain still, the aliens apparently recognized the injured Scott and flew over to him as if to greet him. Their presence brought Scott briefly back to consciousness as the aliens formed a face that smiled reassuringly at him. They then flew off to explore their new world. When the International Oversight Advisory enacted a plan to return the crew home, Scott was hesitant to agree of their course of action. He knew something had to be done out of loyalty to the chain of command, but he didn't take immediate action. When Dr. Nicholas Rush enacted the plan to prevent the plan from being implemented, Scott was vaguely aware of his plans, though he didn't know Rush's course of action. When Colonel David Telford and his team abandoned the ship after Rush ended the rows, he assured the people that they were safe. During the daily routine on Destiny, he led the crew in a physical fitness regimen. He included general exercises as well as a run on a marked course on the ship. During his trip to Earth via the long-range communication device, he had plans to visit a friend at the Edwards Air Force Base. He changed his plans when he got a letter from Annie Ballack. When he finally met with her, he discovered that she hadn't aborted the pregnancy 8 years previous. She had given birth and raised Matthew Ballack, his son. When he offered to help her financially, she informed him that she could handle it herself. The revelation of his son and the fact that he was so far away affected him quite severely. While exploring underground ruins on a deserted planet, Scott, Eli Wallace, Chloe Armstrong, and Master Sergeant Ronald Greer became trapped and Destiny re-enters FTL before they can escape. By making a series of Stargate jumps that led back to the planet with the wrecked Chappa'ai fighter where Dr. Nicholas Rush had been abandoned, they find a map of the Stargates in their immediate neighborhood and follow the path Destiny had taken. When Destiny makes its last scheduled stop before entering the intergalactic void, their attempt to dial fails because the rescue team searching for them returns simultaneously. However, due to sabotage by the Chappa'ai, the ship exits FTL while still in range of the Stargate, and the three are able to dial the ship again. With the bonds of the brainwashing broken, Telford divulged that the Lucian Alliance was enacting a plan to dial the Ninth Chevron and board Destiny as they spoke. With defensive options minimal and little time to act, Young assigned Scott to a team with Greer as part of the ship's infantry defenses against the Lucian Alliance unwarranted boarding of Destiny. With control of Destiny essentially split in half between the expedition and the Lucian Alliance, Scott remained in the control room of Destiny, one of the soldiers who had not been captured by the Alliance. With the radiation burst from the nearby pulsar system growing more and more dangerous, Greer and Scott donned the ancient environmental suit, and after a negotiation between Camille Ray and Commander Kiva, passed through Alliance-controlled territory of the ship to a hull breach that had been sealed off by the ship's shields. They pass through the hull and go for a spacewalk in order to locate one of Destiny's shield emitters in order to adjust it to withstand the next burst of radiation from the pulsar. While Greer and Scott are on the spacewalk, a coup erupts between the expedition and the Alliance, affecting control of the ship's systems and compromising Greer and Scott's ability to re-enter Destiny the way they exited. With the help of Eli Wallace, Rush, and Brody, Greer and Scott are able to run alongside the hull to an air dock of an unexplored area of the ship. However, they were not able to reach the air dock before the pulsar's next burst of radiation and were presumed dead by Rush and Brody. However, Scott radioed in moments after the burst passed, revealing that he and Greer had hid themselves on the underside of the ship in order to block the radiation. They then returned to the airlock and were attempting to enter and were led in by Eli. After re-entering Destiny and regrouping with Eli, Chloe Armstrong, Rush, and Brody, Scott and Greer decide to go on a reconnaissance mission to assess the condition of the ship's personnel. While they are away, a small contingent of Alliance soldiers pinpoint Eli, Chloe, Rush, and Brody's location, but before any prisoners can be taken, Scott and Greer arrive on the scene and kill the Alliance soldiers. They decide to follow Rush's plan of sealing themselves off in the hydroponics lab, the safest location on Destiny from the radiation burst, and allow the next burst to kill off the remaining Alliance members. Scott and Greer make their way to the infirmary in order to grab Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson and Ray. Unfortunately, the Alliance launches an attack and pins them in the infirmary. Scott radios Rush and tells him to seal the door, despite the fact that they aren't with him. Rush's true plan is effective, and the threat of death by radiation bursts convinces the remaining Alliance forces to surrender control of Destiny back to the expedition. Scott is among the skeleton crew aboard Destiny who welcomes back the expedition that were evacuated off Destiny by the Alliance, and was congratulated by Young when he arrives in the Destiny Gate room. He is later approached by Dr. Nicholas Rush and Camille Ray, who want him to take over Destiny. Camille, due to concerns for Colonel Everett Young's failing confidence as a result of recent events and rush for his own purposes, Scott is angered by their suggestion and heads off to confront Young himself. After a verbal and slightly physical confrontation, he gets Young to snap out of his depression by reminding him that a leader leads for the sake of the others and not for himself, and that Young is the perfect choice for the job. Later, Scott sends a team sent to recover the escaped Lucian Alliance soldier Simeon, as he has pivotal information on the attack on Earth. This mission is hampered by Dr. Nicholas Rush, who is looking to avenge the death of Amanda Perry, who Simeon killed. Curious about the signal, he is shot down by Rush, who tells him is probably not a sign from God. Later, when Rush returns from having killed Simeon, Scott and a group of soldiers confront him, showing a more developed level of wisdom and control. He calmly berates Rush for costing him a chance at helping Earth and asks Rush in an almost mocking voice if Simeon's death was worth it. He is also disgusted when he learns that Rush has been using Chloe Armstrong's condition for his own uses and leaves through the gate, not bothering to see if Rush is following. As Chloe's condition deteriorates further, Scott becomes more upset, especially after his vision while infected by the alien plant. When Chloe is no longer allowed visitors, he nearly attacks Master Sergeant Ronald Greer when he says that sooner or later Chloe will turn and there is nothing that can be done except to put her down. He is near tears at the sight of Chloe's goodbye message to him. Prior to the battle with the Berserker drones, Scott again visits Chloe Armstrong in isolation to keep her informed on the day-to-day events. He is still confident a cure can be found, but Chloe reveals that the mutation on her skin is spreading faster and more aggressively. Despite this, Scott still insists that he cares for her and a cure can be found, but Chloe says while he is not consciously aware of it, a part of him is pulling away from her, and he should listen to it, because soon there won't be anything left of her. When Chloe escapes from her cell, Scott tracks her down to the control interface room, where she tells him he is too late. She has summoned the Chappa'ai. While Master Sergeant Ronald Greer wants to shoot her, Scott demands an explanation, and Chloe, claiming to be in control of herself, explains that she summoned the aliens to create a distraction during the drone attack on Destiny, which works and allows Destiny to win. Scott later flies the ancient shuttle out to capture a drone and is prevented from returning by the surviving Chappa'ai mothership. After a deal is made with the aliens to fix Chloe, Scott is able to return to Destiny and takes Chloe to the alien mothership, where the two admit their love for each other, before Chloe is taken away. Scott stays aboard the shuttle until Chloe is returned, cured, and heads for Destiny to find it fighting off a second wave of drones. Scott helps fight until Dr. Nicholas Rush and Eli Wallace turn the first wave against the second, allowing Scott to land before Destiny finally escapes to FTL. Scott later visits Chloe in the infirmary and is excited by Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson's confirmation of the cure.